Tonight at 10, His Majesty the King discussed with the Spanish Prime Minister efforts to fight terrorism. His Majesty reviews economic, trade and investment relations with the member of the Austrian Chamber of Commerce and CEOs of major companies. And suspected Paris ringleader Abdelhamid Abaoud is confirmed dead in a police raid in the capital. Good evening and welcome to the 10 o'clock news. King Philip VI of Spain and Queen Latifah welcomed their Majesties King Abdullah and Queen Rania upon their arrival in Madrid, the last part of His Majesty's European tour. His Majesty the King and King Philip VI were greeted by guards of honor and the Royal Jordanian and Spanish anthems were played. His Majesty the King discussed with the Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy the latest regional and international developments, mainly the fight against terrorism. His Majesty condemned the terrorist attacks carried out by Daesh in the region and the world, stressing the need for international coordination to counter terrorism. The King and the Spanish Prime Minister reviewed the outcome of Vienna meeting on Syria and means to reach a comprehensive solution to the country's crisis. Talks during the meeting also dealt with means to revive peace talks between the Palestinians and Israelis to achieve the two-state solution, as well as relations between Jordan and Spain. The Spanish Prime Minister voiced his country's keenness to forge closer ties with Jordan, mainly the economic and investment fields. Earlier, His Majesty met in Vienna with members of the Austrian Chamber of Commerce and CEOs of major companies. During the meeting, His Majesty reviewed economic, trade and investment relations between Jordan and Austria and stressed the need to bolster these relations.
Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm truly delighted to be back in Vienna and the wonderful relationships we have between our two countries. You know, we wouldn't be here if we didn't think that there were some opportunities for the private sectors of our countries to be able to exchange and take advantage of what we can offer each other. We do come 10 years later because Jordan is actually at a tipping point of national development. Obviously, you know more than most people that the recent regional turmoil has placed tremendous pressures on our region and specifically on Jordan for our resources and infrastructure. 20% of our country is Syrian refugees. Part of the challenges that we have, obviously, is we're considered a middle-income country, but with the burden of 20% of our country having Syrian refugees, 90% that are outside of the refugee camps. When we try to take loans, because only 35% this year, it was 26% last year, aid comes to cover that. 25% of our budget goes to supporting refugees. So you can imagine what a burden that is on our country. Part of the problem is obviously having 20% increase in such a short period of time. It's increased our electricity bill fivefold and you know, made a strain on our country, but it's allowed us, being a small nation, again with similar population levels as your country, to really adapt very quickly. We have created a 10-year new economic plan to be able to take care of this. We have completed an IMF program to correct the imbalances in our economy. We've generated a new private-public partnership and investment laws to be able to deal with the challenges that we have. And as a result, the reform has enabled us to relaunch our economy in 2014. And we're now the second highest growth in the MENA region of the oil importing nations. Because of the challenges of energy, we started looking at diversifying our capabilities in energy, which was probably the biggest challenge. We're now in the process of putting together a 1,500 megawatt of solar and wind projects into our country. We are now the most advanced country moving into alternative energies. Aqaba, our national seaport, has LNG and LPG terminals that are operating, and we're the first government to introduce electric vehicles into our government. So as we complete this capability, all government officials will be running on electric vehicles. And we're actually working now with developing in Jordan. That's not where the money saving is. It's actually when it comes to buses, dump trucks, and other vehicles that have high capacity usages around cities. We are in contact, obviously, with some technology in the States and elsewhere, but it's actually being co-developed in Jordan. And the process for that actually then ends up being a model that we can use in Egypt and Morocco, other countries that are actually have difficulties with energy issues. So on alternative energy, it's not just solar panels that you put on houses or solar fields, it's actually how it invests down to the local citizen and how we do it across society. So there's tremendous opportunities in that region. We have trade agreements that I think most of you are aware of, and an open economy in the region that's offering a market access to over 1.5 billion consumers. What we do lack in natural resources, obviously, we make up in very high-tech, savvy, bilingual and cost-effective human resources. Our economic and development zones allow full foreign ownership and offer unique incentives with no customs duties. Again, going back to Aqaba, our natural seaport, we have 9 specialized ports, and it has access to East Africa, but also we have access to the Gulf markets. And Aqaba is obviously an ideal logistics hub and the best gateway to tap for regional potential. Our capital city in Amman is one of the 10 best places to start a tech firm worldwide, and 75% of all Arabic internet content comes from Jordan. And again, that's the homegrown talent, because on digital content, this puts Jordan in a unique position compared to all other Arab countries. We were ranked first in the Arab world and 5th globally in medical tourism, and I know that there are some people here that represent that sector. With $1 billion of revenue per year. And our healthcare system is regarded as one of the best in the world. Because of the challenges that we have with young people and people finding jobs, the priority for us is the economy. The only way that works is having a much more healthy atmosphere for the private sector. The last thing I'd like to say is we have to face the reality that because of Syria and to an extent Iraq, the natural trade routes between Jordan and all the countries south of us, the Gulf countries, and to an extent part of East Africa, are going to have some challenges in transportation. And so some of you here, and this is what we've been doing with other countries in Europe, is to look at Jordan as a hub because of the capabilities that we have and some of the laws and regulations that we can offer and the incentives that we can offer, looking at production and assembly in Jordan to access to other markets in the Gulf countries and into East Africa. So I wanted some of you that are into manufacturing products to look at maybe Jordan being an ability to do either assembly or full production that then allow you the access to trade into the Gulf countries.
Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour met with the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Antony Blinken, currently visiting the kingdom as a part of a regional tour. At the meeting, Mansour discussed means to forge closer ties between Jordan and the United States in various fields, as well as the situation in the region, mainly the Syrian crisis and its impact on Jordan. The Prime Minister stressed the strong partnership between Jordan and the US and thanked the United States for its continued support to the kingdom. He also spoke about the pressure and challenges facing the kingdom due to the influx of Syrian refugees into the kingdom, noting that Jordan is committed to providing basic services to the refugees despite its limited resources. The Prime Minister also checked on the fourth phase of the National Employment Campaign organized by the Ministry of Labour in cooperation with the private sector. Insur was briefed on the work progress of the campaign titled My Job, My Future, and will continue until November 26 at the Al Hussein Center for Youth with the participation of 359 companies. The campaign is expected to offer about 14,000 jobs. The suspected mastermind of Paris attacks was killed in a police raid of an apartment north of the capital. Abdelhamid Abaoud was accused of orchestrating last Friday's coordinated bombings and shootings in the French capital, which killed more than 129 people. This report has more.
The Paris prosecutor's office has confirmed that Abdelhamid Abaoud, the alleged ringleader of the Paris attacks, is dead, killed after a police raid north of Paris Wednesday. They'd initially thought the 28-year-old Belgian militant was in Syria, but their investigations led them to a house in the Paris suburb of Saint-Denis, where heavily armed officers stormed the building before dawn, triggering a massive firefight and multiple explosions.
Vous le savez sans doute pour la plupart d'entre eux.
Prime Minister Manuel Valls delivered the news of the militant's death to the French National Assembly. Just how Abaoud died remains unclear. Police say he may have blown himself up, but the investigation is continuing to determine the cause of death.
A Palestinian stabbed 2 people in a Tel Aviv office building, raising to 16 the number of Israelis who have died, along with 79 Palestinians, in a wave of violence over the past 7 weeks. Around 5 Palestinian youth were injured when violent clashes erupted with Israeli soldiers in the Duhaisha refugee camp, south of the West Bank city of Bethlehem. The Popular Committee in Duhaisha camp said in a statement that Israeli forces stormed the area and raided its homes, noting that clashes broke out with the occupation soldiers who used live ammunition and metal bullets. The statement added that the injured were transferred to a nearby hospital in Bethlehem. Meantime, the occupation forces arrested 27 Palestinians in various West Bank cities. The Russian Air Force conducted mass strikes on terrorist positions in Syria, hitting oil refining assets under the control of Daesh militants. Russia's general staff said Russian planes fired 12 cruise missiles at Daesh targets in the Aleppo and Idlib provinces. According to the Ministry of Defense, Russian jets conducted 98 sorties from Hmeimim Air Base and hit 190 targets. Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the Paris attacks had helped the West to understand that the priority in Syria is to fight Daesh, not to topple President Bashar al-Assad.
Our Western partners came to understand the futility of the position which many of them were taking, and which in fact was an ultimatum: when Assad goes, all problems will be resolved. All this points to the fact that sensible politicians tend to put aside secondary things and understand that it is necessary to focus on the main priority goal to prevent Daesh attempts to conquer vast territories on the globe.
Nearly 100 Daesh terrorists were killed during separate military operations by Iraqi armed forces and allied popular mobilization units in different parts of Iraq. A total of 54 terrorists were killed after Iraqi fighter jets launched aerial attacks in the Makhul Mountains in the northern province of Salah ad-Din. A launching pad used by Daesh extremists to lob mortar rounds at the area was also destroyed during the operation. A military source also said Iraqi security forces mounted separate ground operations north of the Anbar's city of Ramadi, killing at least 40. 5 explosive-laden vehicles were also destroyed during the offensives. Balkan countries have begun filtering the flow of migrants to Europe, granting passage to those fleeing conflict in the Middle East and Afghanistan, but they turned back others from Africa and Asia. The United Nations Refugee Agency said the move left hundreds of people stranded on borders. On Serbia's frontier with European Union member Croatia, about 400 were denied access to a train and were halted by Croatian police as they tried to cross the border through fields. Others were struck between Macedonia and Greece, where Macedonia closed off access to all migrants regardless of nationality.
As far as I know, and what has been communicated to us here from the border officials, is that the government has decided to let pass only Syrians, Afghans and Iraqi refugees. So at the moment I'm at the border with Greece. The situation is relatively calm. We have about 1,500 people on the other side awaiting what will happen in the next hours to come.
His Royal Highness Prince Ali bin Hussein said he can win the race in the FIFA presidential election to become president, adding that old order which led world football's governing body into crisis is being swept away. Prince Ali told reporters in London he was optimistic of doing better than May's election, and he decided to re-enter the race of the presidency in September because other people he thought might take up his torch to reform FIFA did not want to do so. As well as Prince Ali, former FIFA official Jérôme Champagne of France, Swiss Gianni Infantino, UEFA's General Secretary, South African businessman Tokyo Sokhouel, and Asian Football Confederation President Sheikh Salman bin Ibrahim Al Khalifa of Bahrain are also standing.
But having said that, I'll be withdrawing from the race. So thank you all very much, and I wish you the best of luck for the future.
And finally, looking at the weather forecast, relatively cold tonight with the appearance of low clouds. Tomorrow, pleasant weather conditions are expected in most regions, while it will be moderate in the Jordan Valley with southwesterly light winds. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect moderate conditions tonight and pleasant during the day with northern mild winds and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here are our top stories once again. His Majesty the King discusses with the Spanish Prime Minister efforts to fight terrorism. His Majesty reviews economic, trade and investment relations with members of the Austrian Chamber of Commerce and CEOs of major companies. And suspected Paris ringleader Abdelhamid Abaoud is confirmed dead in a police raid in the capital. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Lawal Balkar. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.